Hey everybody, Raheem here, and welcome back to MaryJane Markets. Today was an eventful day in the US market. Those of us who were watching closely went through what felt like a little bit of a roller coaster with the ups and downs. Of course, I'm talking about the long-awaited federal legalization draft bill that was announced today. That was definitely the biggest piece of news to drop in a while. So, of course, we'll be talking about it in this episode, and we're going to be discussing a policy update that's expected in Illinois, as well as playing a little bit of catch up on old news around earnings releases. Before we do all of that, let's take a quick look at how the market did today. It was a very red day for pretty much everyone, with the major ETFs losing anywhere between 3 and 5%, and that's reflected in the individual equities too, with some faring better or worse than others, while the S&P basically remained flat. So no doubt a reaction to what investors heard and took away from the announcement today. So let's shift over to that. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Senate Finance Committee Chairman Ron Wyden, and Senator Cory Booker today announced a draft bill titled Cannabis Administration and Opportunity Act, with acronyms CAOA, that would, among other things, decriminalize cannabis at the federal level. That is, remove it as a Schedule 1 substance from the Controlled Substances Act. Something we talked about yesterday, so if you want to hear more about the history on that, be sure to check out yesterday's episode. And that would leave the states to determine its lawful or unlawful uses. Now, this is a draft bill. That is something that Senator Schumer tried to make clear several times in the press conference earlier today. The current 163-page draft bill is being shared out, and they are going to be taking input from other stakeholders on what they want to see and what they don't want to see in the bill. So that sounds like typical Washington sausage being made. Along with that, they did release a 30-page detailed summary, which is not a bad read. There's not much legal jargon in here, unless you want to follow down to the footnotes. It was definitely intended for a wider audience than just lawyers. So if we scroll down to the content section, we can see what kind of things are going to be included. Decriminalization and recognition of state laws, research, social equity, taxation, and oversight. So pretty broad topics, but ones that are common in most of the state programs. So I recommend this as a read. But if you don't have time for that, Kyle Yeager at Marijuana Moment has an article that's a quicker read that gives a summary of what's in the bill. And I'll link all of this down below in case you're interested. I'm not sure how much value you'll get out of reading the 163 pages of the draft bill. It is still a draft, and I expect much will be changed before we get to the next stage. There is a public comment period open until September 1st, so if you think there is a cause or an issue that deserves to be in that bill, you have some time to submit your input. Now, this all sounds like good news, so you might be wondering why we had this down day. And I think much of that is a combination of just how early we are in this process. This is, after all, just a draft. It's not even in committee yet. And the comments from government officials surrounding the bill. After Senator Schumer made his statement, Senator Booker spoke quite enthusiastically about not allowing this to pass as just a banking reform bill, something us investors have been hoping for a long time, but making sure it's actually a comprehensive act. He tweeted out, "When it comes to legalizing recreational marijuana, we can't allow the creation of this massive multi-billion-dollar industry unless the taxes from that industry get reinvested in the communities most impacted by the failed war on drugs." And the sentiment here is that a comprehensive act is much harder to pass. More deals and compromises might need to be made, more language worked out, and all of that is going to take longer than just one piece. And I'm interpreting this to be the Democratic Party's stance on this. This was the big announcement, and if there was strong disagreement about this, or if it was just a small number of party members that had this opinion, I don't think that would have been included in today's unveiling announcement, or at the very least, someone would have said something to leave that door, if not open, at least ajar. And then the 1-2 punch came in the White House press briefing room, where the press secretary Jen Psaki today fielded a question on the draft bill and commented that she didn't have an endorsement from the president on it. And she later reiterated President Biden's stance that he supports incremental change on the topic. You have to read between the lines here. I don't think the president wants to throw his full support behind it just yet. Otherwise, there would have been a coordinated announcement with the White House, and they would have made a prepared statement on the topic today. This seemed more like a punt to me. Maybe they're still trying to make up their minds about it. Maybe they're waiting to see how a more final version of the bill looks. But this doesn't mean the White House won't come out in support of it, or that President Biden won't sign it if it landed on his desk. I'm just reading the tea leaves here, and this seems more like a let's see where the cards fall approach. Okay, I think that's about enough of that for today. It's definitely going to be in the conversation over the coming months, so I'm looking forward to seeing how it shakes out. Moving along to another policy update, something to keep an eye out for tomorrow. In the Illinois market, Governor Pritzker is expected to sign legislation tomorrow that will address the state's dispensary lottery system and expand the number of licenses up for grabs in this next round from 75 to 175. We'll have to wait to hear the specifics, but I think that they just added another one. I don't think they just added another 100 licenses to the pot. This has just been in the pipeline for so long that they're getting a bigger batch out now rather than the smaller batches they should have gotten out already. This is something players in my home state have been waiting for a long time. If you follow Ben Kovler, CEO of Green Thumb Industries on Twitter, he's been quite vocal about his disappointment in the state program. This should make him a little happier. So if you have investments in companies that operate in Illinois, this is something to keep an eye on. Okay, enough about policies for today. Something I did want to bring your guys' attention to that's been developing over the last few weeks is the announcements of earnings releases. So in the first few weeks of August, we should get earnings from quite a few players, including the big MSOs. Shout out to MJ Stock Trader on Twitter for compiling that and tweeting it out. So it should be a couple of exciting months here. Remember to mark your calendars. And that will wrap it up for me today. Thank you for listening. Thank you for bearing with me through these production issues or growing pains. Make sure you're subscribed and signed up for notifications. You can always find me on Twitter at MJ Markets. And I'll see you tomorrow for the Thursday, July 15th episode of MaryJane Markets. Thank you.